So when I do lives, I like to do a little bit of talking or whatever before people start hopping in for people later on. So basically what we're gonna do today is we're gonna go over some new stuff in the shop. If you've been following the channel, we moved and I went from a full-blown knife making shop to now I've had to consolidate to my garage. We're going to be doing a little bit of discussion about, I guess, like future projects and stuff like that. I have some designs and drawings and stuff like that, and some materials on the way. I also have some new tools for the shop coming. So I'll be getting the Clark Iron Forge 25-ton press. We're going to be building some tables and stuff like that to move some machinery around. Getting a couple of tools and stuff set up in a permanent position that I usually have to move around and stuff like that. So I'm going to try to set this new workspace up to be a little bit more fluid with no wasted steps and uh, get a nicer environment to basically do what I do, which is full-time knife maker. So this is something I wanted to go over with in the video and kind of discuss and stuff like that. Some of you probably know I did a production run of what we were calling the Fat Belly Skinner, which is this little drop point hunter right here. It's like 7 3/4, almost 8 inches overall length. Kind of a tall heel on it or whatever. Just a really good knife to use. I have one that I made for myself. I've sold a bunch of them to people and have had amazing feedback from them. So what I want to do is another production style knife, like a chef knife, for a little bit cheaper of a budget. It will still be what we consider a custom knife. Most of these productions that I was doing, I was, if the client wanted a specific handle material or they wanted to do this or, a different finish or something like that, I was all ears to it because it's just fun. So that's kind of what I want to do. I want to do like a little bit cheaper custom knife that's easily reproducible, I guess. Because no one really has $200-300 to spend on a kitchen knife, which is what most custom builds will get up to around, by after you factor in, the time and the materials and stuff like that. They can get expensive. So what I would like to do is figure out a way to make some sort of chef knife that I can do a production run of and make them a little bit more affordable for people, so that's my goal. So I don't know. I don't have any of these right now finished. I have mine somewhere in a bag or something like that. But yeah, that's my plan. So we're gonna go over a little bit of details about this little doodle here. I have a drawing of it somewhere that I actually did, and I made this wooden one to kind of get a little bit more feel for the hand. So I'm gonna shoot for a little bit taller than a 2-inch heel. This one is 2 1/4 of an inch at the heel of the knife. Which gives you good clearance on the cutting board and stuff like that, whether it's in a pinch grip or however you use your kitchen knives. I wanted a little bit taller heel, but at the same time, I know a lot of people are intimidated by big kitchen knives. So this one, the blade length is only 7 inches. So I struggled to figure out a way to make a comfortable, functional knife with a shorter blade, but still usable. Taller heel for doing your chopping and stuff like that, and also it has that hard stop and everything that you would want from a high-end kitchen knife. And with the length and the profile of this blade, I'll be able to do a nice little taper towards the tip. So you'll have a 7-inch chef or a big knife for doing most of your work, but it'll also taper towards the tip so that your tip of your knife will be very thin for your deep, your more precision cuts and stuff like that. So a lot of, I know it's just a piece of wood, but a lot of planning and thought and using and making mental notes and stuff like that went into this knife the same as it did this knife. So as far as the production goes, it will most likely be a stock removal thing, just to cut down on cost and time. If it's a stock removal, I can have my blanks prepped and make 10 of them at a time, go through a big heat treat day, doing your quench and hardening and tempering and all that stuff or whatever. And awesome. Appreciate that, Future Famous. It's been about 5 minutes. I'll kind of go over basically what I'm doing. New shop, Went from a big shop with a bunch of stuff to a small garage space that I'm having to consolidate and redo some stuff or whatever. Future builds coming up will be a lot like I did on this knife. This is just a template that I did. I called it the Fat Belly Skinner. Little drop point hunter, 8-inch overall knife. Great knife, lightweight. I have a personal one that I've kept myself and used, and a bunch of my friends that I'm really close with got a few of them to kind of test out before I kind of pushed it on and released it. And this past like Christmas, I'd say from October till the end of December, I did about 35 of them, and they were pretty popular, and I liked it, and I really liked the aspect that these knives were half the price of my normal custom drop point hunter build price point. So that's basically what I want to do with this kitchen knife. I want to make a really, really, really good kitchen knife, but I want to be able to do it. I don't like using the word cheap because it makes it sound like I'm sacrificing quality for price, but I'm gonna do. I have a friend that he does like stabilized woods and stuff like that, and I'm gonna get with him about getting some bulk of some nice wood with good figure to it and stuff like that. And I'm also gonna do some synthetics. Give me 1 second. So these are some of the synthetic handle materials that I used a lot on the Fat Belly also. They're a like epoxy resin cast. They come in all kinds of different colors. They're absolutely gorgeous when they're finished. I did a giveaway knife on the channel for the 500 subscribers, and I used the same material as this for that handle, and it came out ridiculously beautiful. And the best part about this stuff is you can get it wet, you can beat on it. You can throw it on the cutting board and stuff like that. I'm sure it would be dishwasher safe, except for my knives are carbon steel knives, and I tell people not to put them in the dishwasher. It takes 2.5 seconds to just wipe it down, clean it, dry it, put it away. Running carbon steel through the dishwasher is like washing your grandma's cast iron. It's just, you don't do it. So anyways, I'm probably going to play around with this shape a little bit. The handle and stuff like that, I'm probably going to profile it to the finished product or whatever, but this is the idea of what I'm going for. It is it's about 11 3/4 overall length. Kind of big for your kitchen knife, but it's also kind of small for what would most people consider to be a chef knife. It's a 7-inch blade, but I think with that heel being 2 1/4 right there, I think that's going to give you a lot of versatility out of one knife. And if you go spend $150, $200 on a knife, you're going to want to use it all the time. It's like getting a new toy. You're going to want to play with it as much as you possibly can. So I would like to make something that is an essential all-around, comfortable to use, just great edge geometry, sharp, good distal taper to the tip to where you can use all of the cutting edge for different things. Whether you're cutting up chicken breasts or something big and thick or something like that, just going down to doing herbs or something with the tip or whatever. So it's essentially going to be a happy medium between like a utility or a petty knife here, and then like your average chef shape. The stained glass wood you're showing with the epoxy is a stained glass multiple color stained wood. So these are an epoxy cast. So what it is they have a mold, they mix up their resins, which usually it's a base coat. Like this one is red, and they add in their contrast colors or accent colors or whatever, and they do some sort of design. But this is completely resin. It's essentially, it's closer, I wouldn't say plastic, but it's like a G10 kind of. It's very, very durable. I've been using this material for years. I've been using this material for like 4 years. I have knives, like how I do this is, as far as my testing and stuff, I have people that get them and I get feedback from, but I also, every like 6 or 8 months, as I progress and change and do different things and get better, I'll keep a knife and I will use it, I will abuse it, really, not use it. I will do all kind of stuff with it that you're not supposed to do. Not necessarily trying to destroy it, but I want to, if you practice super, 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 super hard, your game day will be better, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Um, but yeah, I have some wood also. Give me 1 second. Oh, while we're doing this. So I have some knives. This is a knife channel. Let's show some knives. This is a burl handle, and I did wood pins on this one. Never done that before. Sand my smaller chef knife. A little bit shorter heel, a little bit longer, a little bit of a draw point. Liquid epoxy to seal the handle. You talking about when you fix it to the knife? The handle scales themselves are poured into a mold, and as they dry, they're cured and they harden. And yeah, when I put them onto the knife, it's like hang on. You borrow some cardboard. So like with this one, you'll be able to see a little bit better. So on the wood, you'll have your pins and stuff like that, which these, I don't dome them or whatever, but it's a pretty snug fit. But underneath those handle scales, the blade will have, I don't have anything currently ready. Like I said, I'm in the process of setting up the new shop. The blade, I'll do reliefs for 2 reasons. One, it takes a little bit of the weight out of the handle. So like under this blade, under this handle, there is actually like a fuller that runs all the way, taken out of both sides. Gives you a nice pocket for epoxy to have a lot of surface area to grab onto and hold. And then some of them will have holes all the way through, so epoxy can touch both scales at the same time. So you have a mechanical bond to stop your scales from, wanting to move like that by way of the pins. And then you also have the epoxy in between it that holds it. So I've never had a handle fail. I've abused them pretty bad, and I've fixed a bunch of knives that I've made in the past. I have a friend of mine who does a game recovery. Hunters go out, if they go to take an animal and it gets dark or the weather changes on them or whatever case, they can't find the animal. He goes out with dogs and tracks the animal, and the majority of the time a wounded animal is not going to take a nice path. They're going to go through bushes and swamp and stuff like that. And Florida's got some wetlands. If you've ever seen anything about Florida, you know that it's not a dry place. So his knife had a handle that was a hybrid of epoxy and wood. Half of it was epoxy, half of it was wood. Very pretty colors in it and stuff, and he's absolutely destroyed it. Being waist deep in swamp water for hours and hours every night. And I was able to get the opportunity to restore that knife. Just basically clean the blade up a little bit, and I got to break the handle scales off, which was great because then I was actually able to destroy a knife, that I had made before. Yeah, JLG, what's up, man? How you doing? But yeah, so I think my process has gotten better since then, and having the opportunity to take that knife apart after years of use and abuse was pretty cool, because the handle was cracked where the epoxy met the wood and all that stuff, and it was still together. It was still one piece. So I had to punch the pins out and break the epoxy and clean all the epoxy off of everything. It was pretty cool to see the knife go through quite possibly the worst case scenario that a knife could go through and still hold up. It was still sharp. It was ugly as homemade soap, but it was still sharp. Tips on Damascus. That's good, because I'm in the process of making a bunch of Damascus right now. My biggest thing I could tell people about Damascus is know your I'm not what that means. Know your forge and your tooling and your equipment. My forge, I have a ridiculously big ribbon burner forge that I could melt steel in if I wanted to. And the colors inside of the forge are different because I have a lot of refractory in mine, and it's really, really bright. Clean your material. Make sure your material is actually hot enough. So if your billet is this thick, the outside color and the core temperature of this material are probably relatively close. Yeah, knowing what you're doing helps, but you got to do it for the first time every time you learn something new. So, but if you have a big billet, say your billet's 1.5 inches thick, rotate your billet in the forge. Um, you you'll see on your floor of the forge as you rotate that billet, if there's a cold spot underneath it, that means the heat isn't going all the way through. So every couple minutes, once you're up to a good heat, start rotating your billet around. uh, Doing so will not only, it's just like cooking. So if you're cooking a big turkey, if you just stick it on a pan and cook it, the bottom is going to burn, but the top is not. It's the complete opposite direction in the forge, obviously, because your heat's coming from a different source. But uh, move your stuff around, and once you get a good soak all the way to the core, under your first hammer, or if you're using a press or whatever, you'll feel the material. It'll be soft. Get you a good pass, touch the entire surface of it with the hammer, flip it if you're fast enough, brush it really, really quickly, get back in the fire. Your first couple of heats are your most important, especially with forge welding, because if you let oxygen get between those layers just for a split second, it will start to scale up or, oxidize inside of there when that hot material touches oxygen. Um, and if you get it in between those layers, there's just no saving it. Leaf spring and bandsaw blade. Yeah, so leaf spring is usually 5160 or 52100, and there's I can't remember. There's a YouTube channel called Knife Steel Nerds. They talk about a bunch of different materials or steel options or whatever, even from way back in the day that they were doing, pattern welded steels or Damascus or Woots or whatever you want to call it, up until modern times, and when they started using modern steels to do certain things to get a contrast. So I recommend 1084 and 15N20 for Damascus. One, because it's a super simple forge weld, and the materials have a very close heat treat requirements. So that's an easy one. I also do a lot of Damascus, or not really Damascus, it's more of a laminate, like Gomaz and Sanmaz, like this knife. This knife, I don't know if you can see it in here, is actually an 8670 core with a 15N20 outside. The 8670 actually has nickel content in it. There's a YouTube, I'm not a metallurgist or whatever, I've just trial and error. On that Knife Steel Nerds YouTube channel, they talk about 8670. It has, I want to say it's like vanadium or something in it, but it allows the knife to etch black, even though it has a nickel content. So, it's really just trial and error. Biggest thing is make sure your forge can forge weld. If you can't forge weld, then that's the most important part of making Damascus. Ever use glow in the dark epoxy within the in case of the knife accidentally dropped? If someone's trying to do something. No, that is a good idea though. Glow in the dark epoxy or something like that. No, that's a really good idea. I've never done it. That is a good idea. I have done the resin under heat. It changes colors. So the knife that I made was a kitchen knife, but then the handle was black resin, and where you hold it would turn like a lime green color or whatever. That was a pretty cool build. The handle material was ridiculously expensive though, for what it was. Let me go back up a little bit. But I don't know if that means rather gain weight or gain eager. So yeah, so the leaf spring and bandsaw blade, mostly bandsaws are 15N20. I've got a Porta-Band and a 9-inch like stand-up thing. I have a bandsaw blade pile over there where I use them. And then, but yeah, so basically that's what's going on though. My plan is to design some sort of kitchen knife that can be easily like produced. I don't want to use the word cheap. I'm trying to prevent using the word cheap, because I want it to be a lower price point. But sorry, I don't want to sacrifice quality for the sake of making the knife $50 or $60 cheaper, So this is another template that I do. I do production knives, during the holiday rushes and stuff like that. It's just faster and easier. So this knife I do quite a lot of. Has an 8-inch blade. The handle is a little bit on the long side over this one. It's a 12-inch overall kitchen knife. So it's going to be like a happy medium between this blade and this blade. I would like the shorter blade because, like I said, I feel like some people are intimidated by big knives. They don't want to have this huge 10-inch chef knife in their kitchen, But I will say this: if you ever do use a big, really nice chef knife, you'll never go back to using little tiny knives like that. That's what's up. Yeah, it depends on where you're at. I know there's some places in Florida where I've done it. I've cleaned your own tailgates of a truck before or whatever, and it'll be pitch black. But because you're out in the absolute middle of nowhere, if the sun or if the moon is just right, it's not that bad. Sometimes the simple way of doing things it works. People just don't think about it. They try to overcomplicate things by having $1 million worth of gear and all that crap. Fire extinguishing device or material do you have on case of fire or such, or is it not a concern? It's absolutely a concern. Anytime you're forging, you're going to have forge scale flying off or something like that. But so there's behind my camera setup, there's a wall here, there's a room. Right like 10 feet away from me right there is a water outlet. I also have one right outside the garage. Floor is concrete, and I'm always on the lookout for stuff like that. That's a good question. Make Damascus with coal forge and a hammer. I've never used a coal forge. I say that. I've messed around with a coal forge, like taking the heat on some round stock or whatever, like blacksmithing type stuff. But I've actually never ran or used a coal forge for any length of time. And as of right now, I've never used a power hammer or a hydraulic press or anything like that. Just never had the money to be around something like that or purchase something like that. I do have an hydraulic press on the way, so that will change in the future. But the purpose for me for the press is to essentially be able to do more of what I already do by hand. For instance, when I make Damascus or something like that, I'll be able to make more than just 1 or 2 knives worth at a time. Film Forge and Fire. I don't think they do the show anymore. To my knowledge, I don't think they do the show. I would like to do the competition aspect of it, but as far as like the TV and the show business aspect of it, I'm not a fan of that. There's a lot of stuff on the show that, from a knife maker standpoint, I see, and none of it makes sense. Which I'm assuming is why the show eventually went bust. They started getting kind of more focused on the like the show business part of it, I guess. I don't really know how to explain it. They did a lot of stuff in the later episodes that didn't really make any sense as far as from a an actual knife maker standpoint or bladesmith or blacksmith standpoint. You started seeing them put contestants on the show that had absolutely no idea what they were doing. So I used to do live streams at least once a week in the old shop. But in this shop, once I get everything set up, because right now the lighting in here is terrible. I have one little bulb up there instead of all of my lights and stuff that I used to have. I don't really have the filming setup that I used to have. But yes, I like to do live streams. I like to hang out. I try to usually do them on like Saturday afternoons or something like that throughout the week. If I'm in the shop just messing around sometimes. But I try to do one like once a week if I've got stuff going on. If I have absolutely nothing to talk about, I don't have anything on the table, then I'm not going to waste your time sitting here me saying and talking to myself. But yeah, I try to do live streams, in between builds and stuff to kind of keep people updated. I have a Facebook page for the Forge where I do a lot of posting and like behind the scenes type stuff. It's just Little River Forge. It's a page on Facebook. I don't have a website set up. I was gonna do one, but I don't know. It seems like another platform that I'm gonna have to keep track of. How long have I been making knives? I've been a full-time knife maker for a little over a year now. I've been seriously making knives for about 4 years. Dabbling with it, I've been doing it about 6 or 7 years, but the first couple years was kind of like just, you know, messing around with the thought of being a knife maker, and I was able to get a workshop set up and did a few knives and started acquiring tooling, and it snowballed into the point where I had more production that I needed to do than I was doing, so I was able to go full-time in knife making. I didn't do it on my own. I had help. It's very hard, and sometimes it's kind of pointless because it's kind of like a tattoo artist or like a mechanic shop or someone like that their business is one of those as you need it kind of businesses or whatever. And then there'll be some months where I'll sell orders, just, you know, I'll take orders on knives to the point where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish these in time. And then there's some months where I don't really have anything going on, which is why I started the YouTube channel. In between my production work and stuff, I was able to kind of be like, hey guys, you know, this is what I'm going to do today. Like this knife, I did a video on this one. I haven't done a Farrier's rasp knife in a really long time. I actually cut myself with this knife the other day. I do have an online shop in a sense. I use the Facebook page. Like right now, I have a raffle going on for this knife on the page running. And when I announce my drops and posts or hey, my books are gonna be open, I'm taking 10 orders on knives, or you know, hey, I'm gonna be selling 5 of this knife and 5 of this knife, I do them on there. So that's really the only, other than YouTube. I do Instagram, but Instagram it's not very friendly to knife makers. And like I said, at the time I was using Instagram a lot, I only really made kitchen knives, and they flagged me for like making weapons and all this other crap. So they're not very knife friendly, I guess. Like to the point where a bunch of makers, like big hairy bearded dudes or whatever, were doing the Instagram girl thing where they pretty much have no clothes on and they're like posing with their knife and crap, which is hilarious because Instagram didn't take that stuff down. All right, cool. I gotta weld some legs on my forge stand later on. I gotta go get the welder from a friend of mine's house because I left mine in Florida. So, but yeah, the Facebook page is the best place to get in contact with me about, like, if you wanted to get something. Like I said, I have a few things available that are on the page. I don't use Etsy anymore because Etsy is just flooded with like cheap knockoff versions of a real knife, and then you're just not gonna sell a Damascus knife for the price point that they would cost against a $35, like, you know, made in China or whatever, wherever it's made, kind of just cheap, not really even a good knife, but it looks cool. So they'll buy that knife, use that knife, and it'll be crap, and then they'll kind of be turned off towards that style of knife, and there's no way they're going to pay extra money for one after they've already got a bad experience with a cheap version of it, which is, you know, it's aggravating sometimes, but it's part of the game. Like I said, I used Etsy. Like I said, I do the Facebook page, and when I have stuff available, that's where I post it. So, and I do on YouTube. I don't really come on YouTube and be like, hey, I'm selling this knife, or, you know, I'm selling this knife. You know, I don't really do that on the YouTube platform. I just don't see it being the place for it. YouTube is mainly just to kind of communicate with people that watch my videos and stuff like that, and ask questions about knife making and stuff, or I get to ask you guys questions about knife, because a lot of my followers are knife makers. The knife making community is very, like, tight knit, I guess. We all communicate with each other pretty well. But yeah, so the newest project coming up will most likely be, I've got some Damascus stuff coming out. Like I got a little bit of Damascus in the works of making, and some sand mod projects and stuff like that. But that kitchen knife, that big chef knife, is most likely going to be my next, you know, production run. So if you want to get one, awesome. Thank you so much. If you want to get one, shoot me a message. You can shoot me messages on YouTube. It doesn't really matter. I'm gonna get all the messages. I don't have someone working for me, so I'm sure I'll read it at some point. If you want to get something, like I said, I do a production of the what I call the little Fat Belly Skinners. It's a little 8-inch drop point hunter, 4-inch blade, really comfortable in the hand. Decent price point on them, depending on handle material and stuff like that. And I do a lot of kitchen cutlery. So I believe the Facebook link is on the YouTube channel. Yes, I think it is. I'm not very good at YouTube. I've only been doing YouTube for about a year, kind of messing around with it. And then, like I said, moving to the new area, the entire setup is going to have to change and basically start from scratch. So it's going to be cool to be able to set this shop up with the filming aspect in mind, because my old shop wasn't very good for filming, but it was absolutely perfect for doing what I do in it. So I'm going to be able to incorporate I have to make it a good environment for content creation, and filming and lighting and stuff like that will be a priority, as well as, you know, movement in the shop and no wasted steps, and where everything needs to be in storage, and kind of make it a good place to be, a happy place to make things. Because if you have a comfortable environment to make things, I'm 100% believer in your work quality you'll be better. But yeah, so any questions or anything like that? I was gonna do something knife making related, but I don't have anything right now. I have some stuff that needs bevels ground on, like I have this one right here that I'm working on. It's a Sanmai construction. Core is 8670, and it has 15 and 20 cladding. But yeah, can't really see the pattern right now. It's got a really dirty edge on it. It needs to be heat treated, so you're not gonna be able to see it very good anyway. So, but yeah, so I'll try to do a live stream probably Saturday afternoon. Is normally when I do them, and then Saturday afternoon live stream will most likely be making something. It won't be just me kind of doing a shop talk kind of thing. There'll be a lot more people in here on the Saturdays anyway. So yeah. So any questions? If not, I'm gonna hop off here and clean up a mess. I have a cardboard box behind me that's about the size of a Volvo station wagon. I'm gonna clean up some more shop stuff and get it ready to make some stuff. The new build video will most likely be one of the production chef knives. I'll probably forge one just to make it, and then do a production run of like a stock removal set or something like that. So, see any random comments. And getting somewhere to film from would be awesome, instead of just leaning my phone up on stuff and dropping it. But I appreciate you guys that come hang out. Appreciate the questions. It's been a good time. I'm gonna hop off here and get some stuff done. I appreciate you guys.